Part 6. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 51. The next day, 5 children with bruised noses and swollen faces were added to the school, and the classmates watched curiously. No wonder they were strange. Mr. Zhuang's management has always been strict, and the biggest conflict in the school is just bickering. The last fight happened outside the school, and it was mainly caused by 2 people outside the school, Bai Shan and Er2. This time it was different. Some people went to ask Bai Erlang, and some people asked Man Bao quietly, "Did you fight?" Man Bao didn't think there was anything shameful about this. He nodded and said, "I beat him." But she also knows that fighting is not good, and she knows to file a complaint first, so she said, "They did it first, and they also set up an ambush." Some students asked curiously, "Why are you fighting?" Man Bao was stunned, touched his head and thought, "Yes, why are they fighting?" So as soon as she turned around, she dragged Bai Shan to find Bai Erlang and asked, "Why are you hitting us?" Bai Erlang was beaten and scolded again last night, and his face was stinky, but after the re-education of his grandmother and his parents, he already knew that he would not be able to fight with Bai Shan again in the future, otherwise he would definitely be punished by his grandmother and his father, and even his mother's revenge. So when he heard Man Bao's question at this time, his little face stinks even more. He said, "It's none of your business. Originally, I only targeted him. You deserve it." Man Bao looked at him, looked at Bai Shan again, and snorted at Bai Erlang. She and Bai Shan have a new feud, but the new feud has been reconciled. The most important thing is that they passed through life and death yesterday, and she feels that they have risen from the ordinary relationship at the same table to the stage of good friends. So in the face of Bai Erlang, who had been complaining for a long time, Man Bao stood on Bai Shan's side without hesitation, pulled Bai Shan back and gave him an idea in a whisper, "When will your house be built? I will let my eldest brother brother, they are going to help." She said, "Bai Erlang is a bad guy. You live in their house, and if you are bullied by him, you may not be found out, and you are a guest, so it is not easy to fight with the master. It will be fine when you move out. If he still bullies him, then I'll ask my eldest nephew to call you back." He added, "If my eldest nephew can't fight, I still have 5 brothers and 6 brothers. Let me tell you, my 6 brothers fight very hard, and there is no child in the village who can compare to him." Bai Shan didn't want to live at his uncle's house anymore. He felt it was very inconvenient, so he whispered to Man Bao, "My grandmother is choosing a place. I heard from my mother that if you move quickly, you can move out before the new year." Bai Shan had never seen a house built, and felt that it would be very fast to move out before the Chinese New Year, but Man Bao was not. She exclaimed, "It's been so long, you go home and ask your grandmother to quickly choose a place. I told my father, when it's time to ask my elder brothers and the others to help. I have 6 elder brothers, and if I call some people from the village, I can build a house for you in 3 to 5 days. So fast." It's unhappy," Man Bao said. "Last time the village chief wanted to build a house for Sanzu to marry a wife. My eldest brother and the others worked together and built it for him in 2 days." Obviously, Man Bao didn't know that there was a difference between a house and a house. Bai Shan didn't know. He waited excitedly for school, took the homework that was fined from Mr. Zhuang and went back. Mr. Zhuang is not blind. The appearance of the 5 students with bruised noses and swollen faces looked like they were fighting. When asked whether it was a private fight, he punished him again. Bai Erlang and the other 3 received the punishment with a bitter look on their faces, but Man Bao and Bai Shan were very excited, because both children felt that when they read, they should write. What kind of punishment is this? The 2 of them went back to their respective homes happily. Man Bao was very responsible today. First, he organized Datadaya and the others to teach them a few words, and also read 4 sentences of 1,000 characters, and then she sat idle by the side. She went to the mall and glanced at the tube of green liquid, and asked covetously, "Keek, can't you really give me credit first?" The system said helplessly, "Host, I can only connect to the mall, and transactions are done by a third party. If I have the points, I can buy them myself and owe them to you on credit. You can pay me back the points in the future, but the problem is now. Yes, I don't have that many points either." The system doesn't mind letting Manbeo see its own points, because there aren't many. It came here by accident when it encountered a space storm during the delivery process. After contacting the main system at that time, the main system said that the space channel on the interstellar connection side was not opened, and a large amount of points was required to open it. It stands to reason that the points should be paid by the host, but where did the host get the points at that time? If there are no points, the channel cannot be opened, the items it contains cannot be returned to the encyclopedia, and the system cannot determine the points given to it and the host. This is almost stuck in an endless loop. The most terrifying thing is that because the channel cannot be opened, and it has spent a lot of energy in order to keep itself through the storm, it can no longer go back by itself. So Keek could only spend his points to open the channel, and then found a nearby person with the highest IQ detected at that time to live. At that time, it was dizzy, and it didn't see Manbeo's appearance at all. It only looked for the soul. Who knew it was a doll? The doll is just a doll. It is legal anyway, and the channel is opened. Even if the treasure can't pay the cost of the channel in the end, if she dies in the future, the system can be recycled, so that she will not be left in the interstellar space. For an intelligent system like them, if it cannot create income for the interstellar, it will definitely be disconnected from the main system. Once disconnected, it will be no worse than death. So it really doesn't have points to help Manbeo. Over the years, the points that it has bought candy to lure Manbeo are still squeezed out of the teeth. Of course, Manbeo just paid it back not long ago. She also happily went from negative equity to positive equity. Like Manbeo, Keek is also very confident in her, because in a short period of time, she not only achieved positive growth in assets, but also successfully opened them all. What does this mean? It shows that the plasticity of its host is very large, and the current predicament is only because its host is too young. It would be good to grow up a little bit. As for Manbao's character, Keek, who grew up with her since childhood, thinks he knows best, but this is a master who insists on not going, persuading him to go backwards. But she has another advantage: as long as there is interest, she will do it. The benefit is to have something she likes, something delicious, fun, something that is good for her family, or something that her family desperately needs. Keek felt that he could put this tube of medicine here and hang Manbeo, but the points required were too many, and he seemed to have no hope, so he said, "Manbeo, the rooster you bought for your mother has already been eaten. According to the doctor, in fact, your mother's most fundamental problem is anemia, so you need to supplement nutrition. If you can ensure that you eat meat every day, your mother's body should be much better, at least until you earn enough to buy medicine integral." When Manbao heard the words, he began to count all his copper plates from the system, and found that it was still possible to buy a chicken. So she took the money to find his second brother, and the system reminded him again, "Your family may be reluctant to buy chickens." Manbao stopped, tilted his head to think about it, put the copper plate in his pocket and walked out. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 52. Dia, who was struggling to read, took a moment to glance at it and asked, "Little ant, what are you doing?" Manbao waved his hand and said, "You guys continue, I'll walk outside." Dia subconsciously wanted to keep up, but Manbao glared at her, "Hurry up and write, if you can't remember, you will be fined 100 times. Although not very dignified, Dia still squatted down to the ground subconsciously, but she was not afraid. She looked up at the little ant, and when she saw her, She was hovering at the door, mumbling words, not knowing what to say, so she didn't care and then lowered his head to write. Man Bao was muttering, should I go to Brother Hu's house at the end of the village, or to the village chief's house in the middle of the village? The system watched silently and did not make a decision for her. In the end, Man Bao went to the village head's house. She felt that if the village head's house didn't want to sell chickens, then she would go to Brother Hu's house. Why did she choose these two families to buy chickens? Because other than theirs, these two families raised the most chickens in the village. It was when the dinner was started, and there were basically people in every family. As soon as Man Bao appeared in the yard, Sanzu's daughter-in-law saw her. She curled her lips, not very happy. It's true that she doesn't have a good sense of Man Bao. The last time she said what she said by the river reached her home, she was scolded by her in-laws. What they didn't expect was that the Manbao family went to the county seat the next day, and they returned the money on the third day. There was a faint voice in the village saying that their family forced Manbao's family to pay back the money, and their family carried food to the county to exchange money. This is not a good word. On the spot, her father-in-law took the money to go to Lao Zhutu's house. Although Man Bao's father explained it, the two were clarified. But she was still scolded by her mother-in-law. She did the heavy work of feeding pigs at home these days, and the elder sister-in-law and the second sister-in-law were all idle. Sanzu's daughter-in-law felt that all this was Manbao's fault. Sanzu's daughter-in-law doesn't have a good face towards Manbao, and Manbao is not a fool, so she walked past her and shouted, "Dazu's daughter-in-law, Dazu's daughter-in-law, are you at home?" Dazu's daughter-in-law, who was cooking in the kitchen, ran out and stared blankly at Manbao, who was not as big as her daughter. Manbao smiled at her, milky voice, but said in an old-fashioned manner, "Dazu's daughter-in-law, where is your mother-in-law?" Dazu's daughter-in-law only thought that the other party was cute, so she held back her smile and said, "It's Aunt Manbao. My mother-in-law went to the vegetable garden. What are you looking for from her?" "It's okay, I just want to buy a chicken with your family to eat." Dazu's wife stayed for a while. "Buy chickens? Don't you have chickens in your house?" Manbao said confidently, "My chickens still lay eggs, so I don't want to eat them." Sanzu's daughter-in-law couldn't bear it any longer, and said, "Your chicken is not willing to eat it, but mine is willing to eat it." Manbao said, "If your chickens don't lay eggs, maybe they are willing to sell them." She gave Sanzu's daughter-in-law a strange look and said, "If you want to sell it, just say it, I didn't force it." Before Sanzu's daughter-in-law could speak, Dazu's daughter-in-law looked at Manbao suspiciously, "Aunt Manbao, did your family ask you to buy it?" Manbao nodded, "My mother wants to replenish her body, so she has to eat chicken." Dazu's daughter-in-law, "Do you have any chickens that don't lay eggs to sell?" Dazu's daughter-in-law hesitated to shake her head. She was still very suspicious. How could Lao Zhou's family let Manbao come out to buy chickens? There are brothers-in-law and so many children in the family. Even if they bought chickens, they should be the ones who came? It's just that before she could say it, Sanzu's daughter-in-law said, "Yes, do you want a big cock?" Manbao's eyes lit up, and he nodded again and again, "Yes, yes, three-pillar daughter-in-law, go and catch the big cock to me and see, I will give you the market price." Sanzu's daughter-in-law doubted, "You really want it, do you have money?" Manbao took out a large amount of copper plates from his pocket and said with a smile, "Well, I have money." Sanzu's daughter-in-law's eyes were straightened, and Dazu's daughter-in-law was also stunned, thinking unanimously, the old Zhou family is really big-hearted, so much money is given to a little baby, and he is not afraid of being robbed. However, this is in the village, and it is estimated that no one dares to rob it. Since Manbao brought the money, Sanzu's daughter-in-law rolled her eyes and went to the chicken coop to touch a rooster and show it to Manbao, saying, "Well, this is the only one, there are 2 roosters in my family, 1 rooster." Save this one for ancestor worship, I will sell this one to you, according to the market price, I will weigh it for you. Dazu's daughter-in-law frowned, and Sanzu's daughter-in-law whispered, Sister-in-law, my mother has long wanted my elder brother to take this chicken and sell it at the market to pay back the money, but we rural people, who are willing to spend dozens of dollars when money to buy a chicken to go back to eat. It will definitely be sent to the county at that time, it will take a lot of time to go back and forth, if you don't want to sell it, go back and let the eldest brother take it, my third child will not go. Dazu's daughter-in-law closed her mouth when she heard the words. But she didn't let the third daughter-in-law come so foolishly. She took the initiative to go back to the house to get the scale, and said to Manbao while weighing it, how can people from the village come at the market price? We will give you a penny cheaper per pound. After weighing it out, Dazu's daughter-in-law clumsily calculated and said, it's 53 in total. Manbao happily counted the coins in his pocket to her, but when it was not enough, he put his hand into his pocket, but asked Keek to put the money in his pocket and gave her the money. After going back and forth 2 or 3 times, he finally counted 53 coins. Dazu's daughter-in-law carefully tied the cock's legs, and then tied all the wings to her, and then let her hold it back. Seeing that she was still struggling to hold such a big cock, she asked, how about I send it back to you? Manbao shook his head and said confidently, it's okay, I can hold it. Manbao went home with the rooster in her arms. Halfway through, she couldn't hold it, so she simply threw the rooster on the ground, found the rope on the wings, and dragged it away. The rooster clucked and clucked while flapping its wings tenaciously, or jumping its legs. Naihe's legs and wings were tied, and it was dragged home by Manbao. Just found out that the little ant was missing, and the big head and the others who were about to go out to look for them opened their mouths and looked at the little ant who was dragging a chicken and ran towards them. Arya was the first to return to her senses, and ran up to ask, little ant, where did you get the chicken? Datu and the others also ran up, picked up the poor rooster, and touched it pitifully. Although he coveted it, he still said, little ant, it's wrong to steal. Thursday Lang and the others also ran out. Manbao was unhappy and said, who said I stole it? I bought it. Manbao proudly patted his pocket and said, I bought it with money. Wu Lang, who had just returned from the county town, couldn't help exclaiming, who did you buy it from and how much did you buy it for? Wasn't it a scam? The Zhou family was also in a state of amazement when Manbao took back a cock. After listening to her narration, the old Zhutu couldn't help but touched his waist again, and felt empty. Then he remembered that he put the raw cigarettes out this morning. All of them were brought to the county seat for the 5th to sell, and the rest were put on the shelf by him, and he planned to wait until the Chinese New Year. The old man looked at his old wife. The editor said that there will be 3 shifts tomorrow, so I will try my best to save the manuscript today, and there will be another chapter to add at night. I feel that spring is in good spirits. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 53. MRSGN glanced at the rooster, then at the girl, turned her head to MRSGN and said, since I bought it back, let's put it in the chicken house. Manbao ran up and said, Mother, I'll give you something to eat. She touched her little head and smiled, there are still fish and meat. After eating it, eat it, keep it first, and keep it with our hens, maybe you can get a few more fish. As for the eggs that are planted, when the time comes, the eggs will be hatched, and there will be more chickens next year. Raising chickens is also very food intensive, and most families cannot afford to raise too many. There are 3 families in the village that raise the most chickens, one is the village chief's family, the other is Zhou family at the end of the village, and the other family is theirs. Their family has more children and more labor, which makes it easy to raise chickens. Even if you are reluctant to bear the bran, you can cut fresh and tender wild vegetables and cook them to feed the chickens, as well as various bugs, especially cabbage worms. It was only after the day before yesterday that Manbao learned that their chickens had been eating cabbage worms, not only cabbage worms, but also many, many other worms. They ate crops and vegetables, and their family members would catch them and bring them back. The house is for chickens, but she never went to the ground before, and she also disliked the smelly chicken house, so she never approached it, so she didn't know it. Because Keek wanted cabbage caterpillars, Manbao was excited to go to the field to catch worms, only then did he know that the family had been feeding the chickens with worms. She didn't need to do anything, they could find a dozen of them for her after walking around in the field, but they still regretted, these bugs are rare now, and there were only many in early summer, and the fields are full of worms. Our chickens also love to lay eggs at that time. Although Manbao bought the rooster back, the Qian family did not intend to kill it and eat it, because it was frightened. Soothe its little mind. He couldn't help muttering, "Mother, we really keep this chicken." 53 When Qian Shi half closed his eyes and said indifferently, "If you don't stay, do you have the face to go back? Dazu's family and Sanzu's family are too shameless. Isn't this fooling our sister-in-law? I touched it just now, and the chickens are full. If they take them to the county town, they will not lose a pound or two of hunger. Besides, you have to pay for entering the city, and it takes a whole day of work, and as a result, we still charge so much money from our sister-in-law." Qian said, "So it's not a loss for you to serve snacks for the past 2 days, raise chickens and use them to worship ancestors during the Chinese New Year." Xiao Qian said, "Manbao said he would kill him to make up for your body." Qian Shi smiled indifferently and said, "The child will not remember it after 2 days." The 3 daughters-in-law did not speak. Old Zhutu had a different opinion. Manbao is filial, and for some reason, she has been eyeing the rooster for a while, and I think she will have to think about the chicken after the meat is eaten in 2 days. Qian Shi smiled and said, "Don't worry, I will convince her. Unless she can buy me another chicken, don't try to kill it." Old Zhutu couldn't help but laugh, "Maybe she really buys another one for you. She left 61 cents last time. Now that she spends 53 cents, how much money does she have?" The old Zhutu stopped talking. "How much money do you have on Manbao?" That was a lot, of course, she thought to herself. And today, Friday Lang and the others also earned money when they came back from the county seat. The 2 brought a group of friends to their room to count the money. The adults outside just listened to them wailing in the room for a while, not knowing what they were doing. The children in the family are in a good relationship, so of course they won't stop them. As long as a group of children don't fight, they generally don't care. Early this morning, Wu and Lu Lang carried 2 small bamboo baskets to the county seat, and Dia went with them to wrap the flower baskets. The price was the same as the previous one, 5 cents apiece. After the flower baskets were sold out, Friday Lang even went to the county government office to find the corner gate of Fu's house, and sold the rest of the candy he brought to Miss Fu Er. Because the county magistrate really charged an additional fee for entering the city, Wu Wulang and the others also raised the price very unethically. A piece of candy costs a penny. However, the sugar this time is different from the last one, so it is reasonable to say that the price is different. The sum of the money on both sides is 220 cents. Of course, the account is still calculated by Manbao, because it is still a little bit incomprehensible for Wulang Lang to count, and the same as Manbao, it is Shiro Lang. He looked at the pile of copper plates on the bed, and his heart was so hot that he reached out to touch it, but Wu Lang slapped him on the hand. "Fourth brother, it's not your part." Thursday Lang felt heartbroken, and said, "I also helped. I went to chop bamboo yesterday, and I did my best to cut bamboo strips." Friday Lang felt that what he said seemed to make sense, and looked at Manbao. Manbao pulled all the money in front of him and said, "You have to pay taxes first. To pay taxes is to give money to their mother-in-law." Manbao instructed Data to go back to her room to bring the small notebook she made, as well as a pen, ink, paper and inkstone, and then keep the account. "We have to keep the account, or I won't remember how much money I made in the future." This is what Keek reminded her, mainly to give her a general understanding of how she earns and spends money. She originally wanted to keep it all in one place, but Keek said that she didn't remember it, so she had to prepare another the small book used to keep her own accounts, but she hadn't bought the paper yet. The paper was given to her by Shenbao, and then she cut it into small pieces and sewed them with needles. Manbao sighed repeatedly, feeling that he had to take out a handful of money to buy paper for her fifth brother. Manbao calculated his own small accounts while keeping the accounts, and then said to Keek very confidently, "In this way, I will soon earn another rooster." The system couldn't help but said, "Host, you can actually buy paper in the mall. It's good quality and cheap, and it's much cheaper than what you buy in the county seat." Manbao snorted, "Is there any paper for sale in the mall?" System, there is nothing in the mall. Other hosts are addicted to shopping after opening the mall. Why does its host not buy anything other than sugar? It consumes 1 point at a time. Although the host does not get a commission for buying things, it looks very impatient. Okay. Manbao finally found the correct way to open the mall, wrote down the account, calculated the money for the public, and divided the money. She put all her share in her small pocket, and then had sex. He ran back to his room with a snap, and began to hide under the covers to look for things in the mall. Under the guidance of the system, Manbao finally knew that in addition to rummaging down to find various things in the mall, he could also enter the products he needed to look for at the beginning. If there is no item to look for, the mall makes recommendations based on the items it has viewed. God knows that when Manbao opened the mall for the first time, because he didn't understand, he rummaged through it. He didn't know all of those things, and he was not interested after reading too much. It's all things that I don't know, so Manbao has no interest in the mall at all. But these days, she has been watching the green medicine, so that all kinds of medicines are recommended recently, but the price is too scary. Although Manbao is always confident, but every time seeing that string of numbers always feels out of reach. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 54. Manbao clicked, first input the white paper, and came out a lot of various commodities, some large sheets of white paper that looked similar to theirs, some bound books, beautiful books, and some useful ones. It is packed in a very strange box. It says that it is printing paper. What surprised Manbao the most is a colorful avatar. It says that it is 8D printing paper, which can print anything. It is also the most expensive paper recommended. Manbao looked at it carefully, and wanted to buy it back to see it, but when he was about to order it, Keek couldn't help but flashed the medicine in her shopping cart to show her. Manbao's little hand shrank back. Although Keek wants to spend more money, it is not this kind of random consumption. He said, "With printing paper, you can't print anything without a printer." Manbao retracted his little finger regretfully, but said curiously, "Is it really like what it said? Can cars and clothes be made of paper?" "It's printing paper," the system gave her popular science. "It's possible in the future, even materials can be printed out through printing paper. In fact, the performance is the same, but it's strange, in recent years, humans don't like this method, they are more respect for things made from man-made and raw materials. The main system does not prevent the subsystems from spreading the future world like their respective hosts. In fact, this is also a means for the subsystems to motivate the hosts." However, Manbao only listened to these things as stories. Keek said these were not to motivate Manbao, but simply because she wanted to hear it, so he said it. Manbao listened with interest, and then came to a conclusion: people in the future are really unhappy. Why do people have to do things that can be done with robots? Keek agreed, but the relationship between them was very complicated. He felt that Manbao's little head couldn't think about such advanced issues, so he didn't continue the discussion with her. Seeing that her eyes kept looking back and forth at those beautiful books, Keek reminded, "Host, there are some differences in these words, and these books are not made in the current bookstore. I suggest that the host buy a piece of white paper and cut it by himself." That being said, Manbao still couldn't hold back. He first bought a piece of white paper and put it in the system, then he went to look at the small books that were so good looking, and found that a page was buy one get one free, and he didn't. Expensive, only 2 points. Without waiting for Keek to speak, she quickly bought a small book with a pink rabbit on the cover, and ordered a lot of flower covers as a gift. The system watched silently, and when these things were delivered, Manbao took out 2 small books and hid under the covers and touched them, before putting them into the system contentedly. She said solemnly and systematically, "Keek, so we don't have to cut it. If I don't take it out, I'll keep my own small account." Keek gave and agreed with her behavior. Seeing that his good friend had no objection, Manbao became happy, and then went to see the pile of white paper he had bought. The white paper in the mall is cheaper than sugar, 1,000 pieces of 2 points, and an additional 200 pieces of another white paper. Manbao took it out and looked at it, and found that it was thicker and bigger than what her husband and Shanbao gave her. She scratched her head and felt that it was unrealistic to bring such a large piece of paper to school, so she labored to spread it on the bed and folded it. She folded it into several layers before putting it in her treasure box. She decided to ask her second brother to make a bamboo basket for her to endorse. Just like the classmates in the school, she would put all her belongings away inside. After thinking about it, Manbao ran out to find her mother. First, he gave her the 132 pennies he counted, saying that this is 60% of the money the fifth brother earned today. She frowned and said, "Who did this account?" Manbao raised his head proudly, "I count." "Qian, how do you calculate it? How much did they earn in total?" Manbao scratched his head and didn't understand where the calculation was wrong. He was about to use his fingers to settle the bill for her mother, when Jojo Lang laughed and said, "Young sister, you also made a miscalculation. They brought 3 things this morning. If 10 bamboo baskets go to the county seat, even if they are all sold out, it will only be 150 yuan, so how can 60% of the 150 yuan be 132 yuan? She secretly glared at the silly second son, blaming him for talking too much. On Tuesday, Lang didn't know where he had offended his mother, so he glanced at his eldest brother in confusion. Zhou Dalin is simpler than him, and he doesn't even understand. However, Manbao came back to his senses with a shock, took the money back from his mother's hand, and said with a sullen face, "Mother, I made a mistake, I will try it again." She hugged the money, turned around, and ran towards Thuro and their room. Not to mention the number of Fridays, even Thursday, with a chill down his spine, he was lying at the door and window, daring not to go out. Qian looked at the disappearing back of the little girl, and withdrew her gaze. She glanced at the confused 3 eldest sons, then looked at the chatter in the east wing, the indistinct discussions, and suddenly shook her head and smiled. "Forget it, a bunch of idiots, why bother?" Zhou Dalin, Tuesday Lang, and Wednesday Lang did not know that they were relegated to the ranks of fools by their mothers, and they were bowing their heads and working hard to make small bamboo baskets. Ever since Wuzhou and their flower baskets made a lot of money, they came back every evening and nothing happened. "If you do, you can help weave bamboo baskets." Manbao took the money and went back to the room, and took a pen to write and draw on the paper. Everyone saw it but didn't understand, but they all knew that another ledger had to be set up, at least the money from selling sugar could not be counted in it, because they sell candy to hide from the adults in the family. Manbao asked Keek's opinion in his heart while calculating on paper. Soon, One system and one person worked out a more reasonable distribution principle. First of all, for a flower basket of 5 cents, they have to hand in 3 cents, and the remaining 2 cents is what they all share. This group of people included the 3 elder brothers who helped them weave bamboo baskets outside, so after doing this, the money that everyone could share would be much less. But it doesn't matter, they still have income from selling sugar. Wu Wulang and the others were very generous and expressed that they could give more points to the 3 brothers, so Manbao planned a small bamboo basket to give them half a penny. It sounds very small, but the total is not too small. Everyone has formulated a new policy, and Friday Lang and Saturday Lang inevitably told the bosses again and again that they must be tight-lipped about their parents. If they were found, their money would definitely be confiscated. Thinking about the last time they were caught confiscated money, the big ones nodded without even thinking about it. They also generously handed more money to Manbao for safekeeping, and the reason was very good. Little ant, my parents will search our clothes and beds, but your father-mother won't. Even Wu Lang hesitated and handed over his money to Manbao. Manbao, Dad won't search your bed, but he will definitely search me, the 4th and 6th, and you can keep this money for me too, remember to keep an account. Manbao waved his hand in response, but instead of taking the money directly, he asked them to pack it in a bag, and then she wrote her name so that there would be no confusion. Anyway, her money was not put in the treasure box under the bed, but in Keek's place, and her father couldn't find it even if he wanted to. I remembered that when I was a child, I hid money from my private house. It was so hard to hide it. It is not easy for a child to make money. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 55. Saturday Lang followed the steps of the 5th brother and also gave Manbao his own money for safekeeping. Chu Yulang also thought about it, but when he looked down at the 5 cents in his hand, he felt that it was unnecessary, so he put the money in his pocket, and Manbao comforted him, 4th brother, just wait for your wasteland to grow food next year. You can make a lot of money in the autumn harvest. Thursday Lang, I thank you. Dad has been planting land all his life, and I haven't seen him have a lot of money. Besides, I'm very happy that the small piece of wasteland I just opened has a harvest. Manbao didn't expect 4th brother to be so unconfident. 4th brother, the reason why father has no money is because he has a wife and children, and you don't have any, so you can't make money. She said, if you can't make money, how can you pay it back? You owe a lot of money. Thursday Lang was a little nervous. He looked at his little sister and said, can't you help 4th brother? Manbao patted his chest and said, 4th brother, don't worry, I will definitely help you. They also said positively, 4th uncle, we will also help you. Friday Lang and Saturday Lang are also very talkative about brotherhood, leaning on Shiro Lang's shoulders and saying, 4th brother, we will also help you. If we come back early tomorrow, we will go to the fields to help you open up wasteland. Manbao thought about it and felt that her extracurricular life should be richer. The most important thing is to find a way to dig more plants for Keek that she has not seen before, so as to earn points, so she also said, I will dig more plants tomorrow. To help you too. Thursday Suro, the help I want is not this kind of help. However, looking at the sincerity in the eyes of his brothers, sisters, and nephews, Thursday Lang secretly said, forget it, even if he mixes in, he won't be able to share much money. The key is that his parents must not allow him to touch the business in the hands of his younger brothers and sisters. Shiro sighed sadly. Manbao thought they had agreed, so she took the recalculated money to her mother, and then gave her copper plate to Keek. She felt that she had to have a big pocket too. Thinking this way, Manbao rolled his eyes and typed in money pocket in the mall, but what came out was a string of beautiful golden circles like copper coins. Manbao let out a whimper and scratched. The head said, what I want is a pocket of money. The system glanced at it and said, it's more appropriate for you to enter the bag, handmade cloth bag. Otherwise, even if you enter the bag, the things that come out will be strange and strange. Manbao entered according to what Keek said, and the things he found were very beautiful, and the colors were amazing. Manbao let out a wow, and looked at it with great interest. He felt that he liked this one and that one. The key is that this thing is very big, and it seems that it can hold a lot of copper plates. Manbao took a look at the points, his smile froze, his eyes widened, and he said, "Why is it so expensive?" "It costs 38 points, which is so much more expensive than paper and sugar." In Manbao's view, paper and sugar should be more expensive things. The system said, "In the future, materials are abundant. Paper and sugar are not expensive, but craftsmanship and labor are very expensive, so handicraft bags are very expensive." Manbao looked at it and didn't want to buy it, but she didn't quit. Instead, she took out a piece of paper and drew it according to a bag. She planned to ask her sister-in-law to make it for her. "Isn't it cloth?" "Ah." Manbao took the painting to the third sister-in-law, and described the bag in detail to her. He automatically ignored the colorful embroidery she mentioned, she wouldn't know it anyway. "But it's okay to make the bag as my sister said." "But fabric is a problem." She took the paper and said, "Little aunt, when I go and talk to my mother-in-law, I'll take the money to buy cloth and I'll make it for you." Manbao nodded happily, "You don't need to tell me, I'll tell my mother." Mainly because she was in a hurry and couldn't wait for Mr. He to speak. Manbao ran to Qianxi and said he wanted to buy fabrics. Seeing her running here and there all evening, Mrs. Qian smiled and said, "Okay, I'll buy it for you, just wait." He turned around and called the fifth man, but only gave him 5 cents, saying, "Tomorrow, when you go to the county town, go to the cloth village and ask them if there are any pieces of cloth in their shop. If there is, buy a few kilograms from them. Come back, remember to pick some big pieces and come back with bright colors." That's right, Qianxi didn't plan to buy cloth for her daughter. It's too expensive. She's seen her paintings, and she needs a lot of materials to make a bag. She's about to make a coat for her. It's not worth it. So it's better to buy rags. It was the first time that Friday Lang received money from his mother. He felt that he was already an adult. He was so excited that he turned around and showed off to Manbao. Only then did Manbao know that her mother was going to use the rags to make her own bags, and she was so excited that she was very envious. "If only I could go to the county town tomorrow, I would be able to choose the rags by myself." For the first time, Manbao felt that it was not good to go to school. Friday Lang promised her, "Don't worry, I will definitely choose the best looking floral fabric for you." Then he handed 2 bunches of purple fruits from the basket to Manbaodao. "Here, what you want." Manbao was very happy when he saw the string of things that Keek called privet. "Thank you, fifth brother." As soon as Friday Lang was happy, he said, "If you like it, I will pick some for you tomorrow, but you can't eat it." Manbao responded, but turned around and handed the thing to Keek. The system didn't want all of them, but left her with 1 string, and the other string was entered into the system. Manbao thought that this fruit was very beautiful. She had always liked to eat fruit. At this time, seeing the purple fruits accumulating one by one, she couldn't help but drool. The system said, "This is medicine." Manbao was still drooling, "Is the medicine good?" System. Manbao wiped his mouth and looked at the bunch of fruits with regret again and again. "If only my mother took this kind of medicine, she wouldn't feel very bitter." The system said, "Your mother's medicine contains ligustrum." Manbao's eyes widened slightly. After a moment of stunned, he turned around and climbed out of bed. He was about to run out again. Olds Hutu and Qianxi, who were already going to sleep, heard the movement of their daughter in the cubicle and couldn't help saying, "Manbao, I have to go to school tomorrow, be honest." Manbao dragged his shoes and ran over and asked, "Mother, where's your medicine? What's wrong? I want to see it." It was getting dark now, and Manbao insisted on seeing Qian's medicine. No matter how much the couple tried to persuade her, it was useless. Seeing that she had such a posture that if you didn't agree, I would just sit on the ground and roll on the ground. Qian couldn't help but have a headache and waved to her husband. Let him find the medicine bag for her to see. Manbao opened the medicine bag and stared at the medicine inside, unable to see where there was a privet in it. The system didn't know it before, but it scanned Qian's prescription before, and knew that there was a flavor of ligustrum on it. At this time, it included ligustrum. Through technical analysis, it quickly pointed Manbao to find it. The strings of privet seeds were plump, round, and purple, but the privet seeds inside were sun-dried. If Qi insisted that they were privet seeds, Manbao would not have recognized them at all. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 56. Manbao's eyes were sparkling, and he held the two privets she found without saying a word. Old Zhutu and Qianxi were sitting beside the bed, and they saw the light in the girl's eyes as bright as the star in the sky. Manbao raised his head happily and stretched out his little hand to show old Zhutu and Qianxi, "Father, Mother, what do you think this is?" Qianxi recovered slightly and asked with a smile, "What is it?" "It's privet. My fifth brother picked 2 bunches for me today. It turns out that they are like this when they are dried. They can still treat my mother." Qianxi smiled and touched Manbao's head, looked at her kneeling on the ground, and told her excitedly that they could buy less medicine in the future. Qianxi listened with a smile, but did not tell her that the medicines were taken one by one, not the same. Manbao said, "Let the eldest brother and the third brother go and pick up all the privet virgins and dry them for mother to eat." Qianxi nodded with a smile, "Okay, mother will let your eldest brother go tomorrow." Manbao was so excited that he didn't want to sleep by himself, so he put down the privet in his hand, climbed onto his parents' bed, and rolled directly to the innermost side, lying still. Then he looked at his parents with flickering eyes. Lao Zhutu couldn't help but patted her fat ass. "You're so old and still sleeping with your parents, are you ashamed?" "Not ashamed, not shy, all 3 sleep with big brother and sister-in-law." It didn't take long for Santu to talk about it. He's still young, so of course he has to sleep with his parents in Lao Zhutu's mind, although the third grandson was the same age as his daughter, and even 2 months older. In fact, the daughter it was much bigger in his heart. No way, the children in rural areas are late maturing, they can work, but they are late. Their children are considered to be sensible early, and that is also because they can keep up with food and drink. Some people, because of lack of food and clothing, look like 4 or 5 years old when they are 7 or 8 years old, and they do not speak very well. But it's never too early to be full. At least the entire village, even the eldest son of the white landlord's family, can walk staggeringly in 9 months, and can call his father and mother in 10 months. Because of this, they all felt that their Manbao was the smartest child in the whole village, or even the township. Also because she is smart, sensible, and early, she went out early to sleep in a small bed by herself. No way, when she was more than 1 year old, she would complain to Qianxi, saying that her father snored so loudly that she couldn't sleep at night. God knows that she fell asleep like a dead pig with her head tilted, and the thunder couldn't wake her up. When she was 2 years old, she disliked it even more, and complained to her mother that her father didn't wash her feet, and her feet stink. So old Zhutu gritted his teeth and stomped his feet, and took his sons up the mountain to cut down a tree, paid someone to make her a small bed, and asked his second son to weave a bamboo wall out of bamboo to separate the room. This hatred will stop. Since then, Manbao has rarely slept with his parents anymore. But it's a good thing for the child to be close to himself. Old Zhutu didn't drive his daughter out of bed, but just got out of bed and carried her little quilt over to her. Manbao rolled on the bed with his little quilt in his arms, and told his mother about interesting things in the school. She listened quietly, asking a sentence or two from time to guide her to say more. So she knew that Manbao knew a lot of characters now. Mr. Zhuang not only taught them to read and write, but also called arithmetic. Her best friend now is the little boy named Shanbao from the Bai family. When it comes to Bai Shanbao, Manbao has a lot to say. After talking about how he was bullied by Bai Erlang, he took advantage of the situation to talk about his family building a house. Manbao also said to Lao Zhutu, "Dad, I've already told Shanbao that I will ask my eldest brother and the others to help, call some more people, and they will be able to build their house in 3 to 5 days, so that he can then you won't be bullied by Bai. Old Zhutu's eyes flickered slightly, and he asked, "Did the young master say when will his family build a house?" Manbao yawned a little and said, come on, we'll build it when the place is determined." Old Zhutu was silent, and Manbao urged him in a low voice, "Dad, did you agree?" The old Zhutu said, "I promise, hurry up and sleep, you have to go to school tomorrow." Manbao's breathing gradually grew longer, and he fell asleep after seeing her words. Lao Zhutu couldn't help shaking his head and laughing, "This child is like her father, she falls asleep as soon as she closes her eyes." She gave him a warning look. The old Zhutu quickly skipped this topic and said, "I originally wanted to talk to Dazu and ask him to take Dalan Saburo out to work as a coolie. Since the Bai family wants to build a house, there is no need to run out, just stay home." She nodded slightly, "The big families are different from us when they build their houses. There is no shortage of stones and wood, and all of them require labor. The work can be done until the end of winter. The family needs money, and although the landlord's house has to do short work, it is after the autumn harvest, and the work is limited. In the past 2 days, Zhou Dalan and Zhou Sanlang have nothing to do. Originally, the Qian family wanted his 2 sons to pack up and go to work as coolies in the county. Even if they couldn't make money, it would be good to make enough food for themselves. We can save some food at home. It is a happy event for the Bai family to build a house." Early the next morning, when Manbao closed his eyes and washed his face, the Qian family called in his 3 sons and said, "You go with the 5th, and let the 5th show you what a privet is, and tell you what a privet is. All the fruits that have been picked are brought back." Manbao, who was washing his face, was instantly refreshed, and ran back to his little bed diligently, pretending to be from the bottom of the bed. In fact, he took the string of privet virgins from Keek and gave it to the eldest brother. "That's it, eldest brother, you guys, if you see rare plants in the mountains, such as those that don't exist near us, flowers and plants are fine, and fruits are fine, just pick them up and bring them back to me." Zhou Dalan and his brothers all know that Manbao likes to pull flowers and plants since he was a child. In the past, she often went to the vegetable garden at home to trouble those vegetable seedlings that had not grown up. She had to pull out everything she saw. He glanced at his mother, agreed, took privet and went out. Then she said to Manbao, "Let's have breakfast, you'll be late for school later." Manbao responded and ran to the main room, but instead of going to the kitchen to eat, he first slipped into the room of Thursday and the others. The 4, 5, 6, and 3 brothers lived together, and Shiro was about to go out with a hoe, and Weivue was ready, so Manbao muttered to him, "Brother, be careful on the way, if you see any more livgenzi, just pick them all back, that's my mother's medicine." Wu Wulang didn't understand how he fell asleep, and the fruit became his mother's medicine, but he nodded and asked, "Manbao, can you tell your friend and give us a little more next time? Sugar, 100 is a little too little." He said, "I'm going to ask Miss Fu to introduce us to a few more guests." I think selling sugar is more profitable than selling flower baskets. Don't you pay 10 for a penny? Manbao was reluctant to spend so many points, she still had to keep it for her mother to buy medicine, so she refused. 100 pills a day is not much, wouldn't you sell a little less to Miss Fu Er? She is alone, eating too much sugar can cause tooth decay. This time you go to the county seat, if she still wants to buy it, you tell her that people with tooth decay are especially ugly. Friday Lang said such a thing to a girl. Does he not want to work, or does he not want to do the Fu family's business anymore? If you are not happy, there will be 3 more tomorrows, you are not surprised, please thank the editor Mint. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 57. Wu Wulang failed to ask for a little more candy from Manbao. He shook his head and sighed and led Laolu and Ya on the road. Yes, it was Ya. Today it's Aria's turn to go to the county town with them. Zhou Dalan and the others also went out with them with their backpacks on their backs, to pick the privet virgins their mother said. Manbao also went out after their buttocks, she was going to school. When she arrived at the school, she found that half of her classmates had arrived. Bai Shanbao was sitting upright in her seat and reading carefully, so she ran up, put her book on the table, opened it, and turned to look sideways at the same table. Bai Shanbao shook his head and finished reading this section, then stopped to look at his friend, and asked with a small face, "Is something wrong?" "It's okay, just to tell you, my father promised to let my big brother and the others build a house for your family. Have you chosen a place for your family?" Speaking of this, Bai Shanbao's shoulders slumped a little, and he said, "My uncle and grandmother don't want us to go out to live, so they must keep us. My grandmother didn't say anything about it yesterday." Manbao said doubtfully, "Why do you want to keep outsiders living in your home? It's so uncomfortable, and it costs food." Bai Shanbao. "Pay for food? What does this say?" Manbao Dao, "I have an uncle who is very lazy. He quarreled with my aunt and was kicked out. He came to my house to find my mother and wanted to live in my house, but my mother didn't let him live, so he went back with his ear. Apologize to my aunt, and then go back." Manbao said, "My mother said, this is for the good of my uncle and also for our family. Living in someone else's house depends on other people's faces. How can my own house be comfortable? When you are outsiders, you can quarrel and throw bowls, or you can be intimate, but there are outsiders, are you embarrassed?" Bai Shanbao shook his head fiercely, accusing, "I used to be able to play with mud, but now my mother won't let me play. I saw a big yellow flower in the flowerbed yesterday, it's beautiful, I want to grab it for my grandmother Dai, my mother won't let it. Humph, if this is in my own home, I can grab it if I want, my mother never cares about it, and she will praise me for my filial piety." Manbao encouraged him, "So you have to move out and live. If you want to plant flowers, I can take my nephews to the mountain to help you dig. I tell you, there are many, many beautiful flowers on the mountain." Bai Shanbao's eyes brightened, and he looked at her enviously, "Have you ever been up the mountain?" Although Manbao has only been up twice, she is still very proud, as if the mountain is her back garden, raised her head and said, "Of course, I can go up if I want, there are wilds on the mountain. Fruit to eat." The envy in Bai Shanbao's eyes became even heavier, and when Manbao saw it, he felt excited, patted his chest and said, "If you want to go, I'll take you with me." Bai Shanbao's eyes brightened, "Really? What's so difficult about this? Just take him to the fourth brother after school." Manbao nodded reservedly. Bai Shanbao let out a cheer, Mr. Zhuang's figure appeared at the door, Bai Shanbao immediately picked up the book, and pushed Manbao a little, motioning her to be careful about Mr. It's a pity that Manbao has never been stalked by her husband, so she didn't understand Bai Shanbao's meaning, she turned her head to look at the door, and when she found him, She gave him a big smile and greeted him very attentive, "Hello sir. All the students, it's really courting death. Didn't Mr. Dang see that you were talking small words?" Mr. Zhuang, who was about to lose his temper, suddenly stopped and couldn't show his smile at the younger disciple. He could only smile back, and then said solemnly, "The plan of the day is in the morning, why don't you study soon?" Man Bao obediently opened the book, and followed by Shanbao shaking his head to read. All the students, are they dazzled, must they be dazzled? But Mr. Zhuang just let them go so gently. But during recess, Mr. Zhuang carried the two children to the yard next door. The students thought that Mr. Zhuang was trying to teach them a lesson, and that was the balance in their hearts, so they said, "How can you not be punished for talking small words in the morning class?" The husband clearly said that if you want to talk small things, you can go out and talk, and you can only read when you enter the classroom. They didn't know that Mr. Zhuang was asking the two children about their reading experience today. Today they are still studying the texts in the Analects of Confucius. Mr. Zhuang has already explained the interpretation. Man Bao has always had many questions. In the class before, because it was the husband who was talking, it was difficult for her to interrupt and ask questions. Now I have the opportunity. Of course, everyone asked. Mr. Zhuang smiled and answered her one by one. Bai Shanbao didn't dare to ask his own questions at first, because according to his experience, if he dared to ask his husband those questions, he would definitely be scolded for being tricky, then beaten on the palm of his hand, and the next time he saw his grandmother, he would sue him, said that he was not special in his mind, and he thought about some sideways and tricky methods every day. Now that Man Bao dares to ask any questions, he is no longer cowardly, and his eyes are bright, and he asks Mr. Zhuang his own questions, and he also asks the questions he used to read 1,000 characters. There are too many questions, this little time between classes is not enough. Mr. Zhuang patted his little head and said with a smile, "Don't worry, after lunch, you can rest here, Mr. will teach you again." After a pause, he said, "If your classmates ask you what you are doing here, you can say that your husband asked you to clean up, you know." The two children nodded together, their round heads and round faces were too cute. Seeing Bai Shanbao's dazed expression, Mr. Zhuang lightly patted his little head and said with a smile, "What are you thinking? Come back to your senses, go back to class quickly." Man Bao dragged Bai Shanbao and turned around and ran towards the classroom. Bai Shanbao whispered and bit her ear, "Sir touched my head." Man Bao looked at him curiously, "Yeah, what's wrong?" Bai Shanbao said, "My former husband would never touch my head, and he wouldn't touch the heads of other children, he would only beat us." Man Bao was filled with righteous indignation, "Then your former husband was a bad guy. Mr. Zhuang is fine. Only bad children will be beaten on the palm." But when the bad boy changed, Mr. Zhuang touched his head again. Bai Shanbao regretted, "If only I had come earlier, when I was in the school." Bai Shanbao couldn't stop talking for a while, and told Man Bao everything about his previous school. When Mr. Zhuang returned to the classroom, he almost couldn't stop talking. He was still thinking about it, but unfortunately, he was sitting under the teacher's eyelids. It would be better if he was in the back row, so that he could continue talking with Man Bao. Man Bao was also still complacent. After class, he didn't go to see his husband anymore. He went to the kitchen to bring food, and then went to the grass outside the school to eat while continuing to talk. It wasn't until Mr. Zhuang waited in the yard for a long time and found out that he saw two little dolls sitting side by side on the grass and talking happily, and then he knew why they didn't look for him. Mr. Zhuang was so angry that his beard was blowing out. He shouted and carried the two little dolls into the yard, and decided to tell them about Xinyo and respect for teachers this afternoon. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 58. Man Bao and Bai Shanbao bowed their heads and listened to the teacher, blah blah, 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 blah. They stuffed a bunch of stuff into their minds, and then they officially started cooking for them. Mr. Zhuang led them into the study. The study room is divided into an inner and outer room. The outer room has 2 rows of bookshelves, a large desk and a chair. The inner room is the tea room, because Mr. Zhuang is afraid of the cold, and his old wife is also afraid of the cold. When he lived here, he asked to make a Kong bed in the bedroom and study. The Kong bed was very low, with mats on it, and a tea set in the center. Mr. Zhuang knew that children should not drink tea, and he didn't let them drink it, so he sat on the first seat and let the 2 children sit opposite. Bai Shanbao took off his shoes and climbed up, sitting with his calves crossed. He was very skilled. Man Bao had never sat like this before, so he crawled up to him curiously, but as soon as his legs were crossed, his body crooked and fell directly to the side. Bai Shanbao is just an idiot. After all, he is young. Although his grandmother taught him to sit like this, he rarely sits like this at home. If he is bumped by Manbao, he will not shake it, so he will be planted to the side. The child rolls and makes a ball. A smile flashed in Mr. Zhuang's eyes, and he almost couldn't help laughing, but thinking about His Majesty, he didn't laugh. With a big hand, he straightened the 2 children with a smirk and said, "People have long been accustomed to sitting on a bench and sleeping on a bed, but in Shilin, there are still many people who are either accustomed or arty, and they still insist on it anyway. Sitting, if you want to be scholars in the future, you have to learn the etiquette in this area." Mr. Zhuang said, "But you are still young, so you don't need to sit so upright." Just as Mr. Zhuang was about to speak, Man Bao asked curiously, "What is Shilin? Is Hu stool a stool? Why is it called Hu stool?" What Mr. Zhuang was about to say choked in his throat, and after thinking about it, he told them from the beginning. What is Shilin? The simple meaning of the word is many, many taxis, and the circle of scholars is called Shilin. When talking about a scholar, it is necessary to say that the ranks of agriculture, industry, and commerce are cheap. When Mr. Zhuang finished all these, the 2 children extended a lot of questions, and then found that time had passed. He didn't have a chance to talk about the topic he had planned to talk about, but he didn't regret it. Seeing that the 2 children listened with relish, he smiled with satisfaction. He glanced outside and said, "There's more than a quarter of an hour before class, you lie down and close your eyes and take a rest." The 2 children felt very energetic and not tired at all. Mr. Zhuang said, "Although I don't feel tired, but using your brain will damage your qi and blood. Now you don't think that you won't grow taller in the future, and you will become stupid again, and it will be too late to change." The 2 children heard that not only would they not grow tall, but they would also become stupid, so they didn't dare to refute any more. They lay down on the mat and closed their eyes. But at this time, their cerebral cortex was still very active, and they had been reminiscing about the knowledge that Mr. just said, and they couldn't sleep at all. They think it's useless to close their eyes. But after a while, their breathing slowly stabilized, their brains were not active so fast, their breathing became longer and longer, and they fell asleep in a daze. Mr. Zhuang sat across from him, picked up the teapot from the stove, poured himself a cup of tea, drank it slowly, and smiled lightly as he looked at the child who was gradually spreading his arms and legs. Mr. Zhuang has been in a good mood for the past 2 days. Although some bad things happened after the disciples entered the school, the atmosphere in the school became active, and he also found 2 good seedlings. Reading a book of the Analects will never be boring for a lifetime, and each time you read it, you can have a different perception. Besides the Analects, there are many other books of sages and sages. Confucianism, Taoism, legalism, militarism, there are so many books that he can read, so he can teach children a lot. Mr. Zhuang has a lot of knowledge to teach students, but not every student is suitable for learning these. Mr. Zhuang has been a student for 30 years, a teacher for 15 years, and he has also been a counselor and disciple. He knows too well how difficult it is to find the right path for a person. Students must learn their own knowledge. How difficult it is, how hard it is for the gentleman to pass on the knowledge in his stomach. When he decided to come to Kilai village, he had already given up his last ideal, because it was too difficult to find a suitable child. He couldn't find a suitable child in the prefecture or county, and he didn't think that a child who was both smart and met his expectations could appear in these calls. But he just found it. First Man Bao, a smart, filial, and respectful child. The only downside is that she is a girl. Now comes another one. There are 28 students in the whole school, some are stupid and some are clever, but Mr. Zhuang knows that they are not smart enough to do that. He said, some understand, some need to say it takes many times to remember. Those who understand, turn around and forget. So he can't teach anything deeper. Why is he willing to carry the two children Manbao and Shanbao aside to open a small stove? Because they not only understand what he said, but they can also draw inferences from one case, and then ask more questions. Those questions are both superficial and subtle. Talking to them, he is not only imparting knowledge, but thinking in the process of speaking, he will also gain something. Mr. Zhuang leaned back, leaned against the wall, closed his eyes and rested. For the current situation, he is very satisfied, very satisfied. One proud disciple is enough, and if you have two, you will have no regrets in your life. Mr. Zhuang decided that next time Huomu had to go back to the prefecture, he had to bring something home, which both Manbao and Shanbao needed. Mr. Zhuang closed his eyes and thought wildly, and when he realized that it was almost time, he opened his eyes to look at the sundial, and then woke the two children up and went to class together. The afternoon classes were mostly arithmetic and poetry. The two children liked these two subjects, especially arithmetic. Manbao found that she was very fast at arithmetic, and she was praised by her husband in almost every class, so she studied even more vigorously. After school in the afternoon, Mr. Zhuang wanted to carry the two children over to open a small stove, but before he could speak, the two little guys stood up excitedly and bowed down with their classmates to send him off, waiting for him to wave. He waved his hands to signal everyone to avoid the ceremony, and when they wanted to speak again, the two children ran away with the book in their hands. Mr. Zhuang, who has not had time to speak. After a while, he shook his head and laughed. Forget it, the two children are still young, so why rush for a while? Manbao and the others ran out. Datu was already waiting outside. Seeing the little boy beside the ant, he had already taken it seriously, so he took both of them home, put their things away, and ran out the door. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 59. Manbao held Bai Shanbao's hand and ran all the way towards Shishulang's wasteland. The big head, and the servant of the Bai family who appeared behind at some point, followed behind together. Mrs. Lu had told the servants that if Bai Shanbao was playing with the little lady of the Zhou family, there was no need to stop him, and he would bring it back when it was time for dinner. If you are messing with other students, you will bring them back immediately, so at this time, the servants just follow and don't stop them. Chu Yolang and Erdudaya were squatting on the ground to rest. They didn't know where to find a thin sweet stick to chew on. Seeing that Datu came with Manbao and a chubby child, Chu Yolang reluctantly folded the sweet rod in his hand a few knots and gave them to them. Bai Shanbao didn't know this thing, so he didn't know how to eat it. Manbao had eaten it. It was one of the few snacks that her family would bring back to her from the field. She taught Bai Shanbao to eat it, and said, "This thing can boil sugar." Bai Shanbao hadn't spoken yet, but Thursday Lang Xian expressed doubts. I've never heard of sweet sticks that can boil sugar. That's right, Keek told her, there was nothing wrong, and he added, wheat can make sugar, why can't the sweet stick? Most of the sugar they bought from the market was made of wheat, which Coco said was called maltose. Shiro was blocked, and couldn't help but say, then how do you endure it? How does Manbao know? She went to ask Coco. The system said, does the host want to search for sugar boiling technology? Manbao replied yes. A string of data was generated inside the system, and the voice was a little excited. It takes 100 points to consume, is the host sure you want to search? Manbao blinked, why do you need points? The system's voice was a little lower, and said, this belongs to technical knowledge. The sweet rods recorded by the host currently only have the most basic introduction in the system, and the description of the sugar boiling technology is not comprehensive, so if you want to make sugar, in addition to if you research it yourself, you can only buy this technology from the encyclopedia through the system. Coco paused and said, after the host searches for this technology, the technical content will permanently exist in the system, and the host can view it at any time. The subtext is that you are not at a loss. But Manbao is a person who can't bear to buy more than a bag of sugar. Will she spend 100 points to buy a sugar boiling technique? So Manbao rejected Keek, and then called out the words included in the sweet stick. Anything she included in it would be studied later, and then it would be made into an entry and uploaded to the system, so she could click it for free. The sweet rod has been recorded for a long time, but the entries in it are very short, only the introduction of the planting history and distribution area, and the introduction that it can boil sugar, make wine, and so on. Manbao scratched his head, and said to Thursday Lang, boiling sugar should be similar to boiling soup, chop it up and boil it in water. You can ask others how wheat is boiled with sugar. It may be similar to that. That's people's craftsmanship, how can you tell me? Manbao said as a matter of course, then you can try it the same way, anyway, sweet sticks don't cost money, just try it. Such a big tone directly choked on Thursday. Bai Shanbao was thoughtful, didn't you say that there is a lot of knowledge in the book? Maybe there is a way to boil sugar in the book. Manbao, I don't have any books at home. My family has them, Bai Shanbao said, I have a lot of books in my family. Manbao's eyes lit up, really? Can I see it? Yes, come home with me after school tomorrow, and I'll take you to read a book. Bai Shanbao said that when they came out of their hometown, they didn't bring much else with them, but brought several carts of books. His grandmother having said that is the treasure of their family, and whether he can stand out in the future depends on these treasures. In fact, Bai Shanbao had another thought that he didn't tell Manbao. He felt that there were too many books. As long as he thought of his grandmother asking him to read all these books, he was too frightened, so he wanted to give some to Manbao. In the future, if he gets to know other friends and gives them a copy, he will be able to read one less book. This idea was just thought of. For example, Shuyo Lang, he had so many sweet poles just now, but he didn't have much for each one of them. If Lu Shi and Mr. Zhuang knew that Bai Shanbao made inferences like this, they would probably be very angry. But at this time none of them knew. Manbao felt that Bai Shanbao was really a good person, not only playing with her, but also willing to show her books, and at this time, he bit her ears and wanted to give her books. Manbao was really moved, so when she saw Bai Shanbao staring at the mountain, she volunteered to take him up the mountain to play. Manbao was going to go up the mountain, and the big head must follow to protect them, so Ertou and Ya couldn't sit still, and they all wanted to follow. So when Manbao came, he took all the helpers of Thursday Lang and ran away. Thursday Lang was so angry that he shouted, "Is this here to help? Is it here to help?" However, a group of children who can only see the wildflowers and grass on the mountain can no longer hear him. The servant of the Bai family followed silently. He felt that he had to report to the old lady when he went back, and he still had to assign a bigger book boy to the young master, so that he would have the energy to run around with the young master. This mountain is not big. The big one is the continuous forest behind. This one is mostly low shrubs, weeds, etc. It is usually used for weeding, so there are few wild animals, so adults can rest assured to let them run up this mountain. It is said to be a mountain, but it is actually a hill. After rushing to the top of the mountain, the children were so tired that they simply sat on the ground, took a breath and stood up, looking down at the mountain, seeing the smoke rising from the village not far away. Bai Shanbao couldn't help but shouted. Man Bao, who was standing by the side, was startled, but seeing that he was shouting interestingly, she also opened her mouth and shouted at the sky. The big head and the others also joined in, so the mountains and the fields were full of their wow, and the servants on the side were about to go deaf. Keek in Man Bao's mind looked at it and became a little interested. He pointed to Man Bao and said, "Put your hands on your mouth and shout, it will make the sound louder." Man Bao covered both sides of his face with his hands and asked in his mind, "So? Wrap your mouth." Under the guidance of Keek, Man Bao finally made the right gesture, so he shouted again, and asked Bai Shanbao who was beside him, "Do you think I am louder?" Bai Shanbao thought she was going to compete with him, so he imitated her and yelled, "Mine is louder than yours." The two children were arguing, and the servant was afraid that they would fight again, so he quickly pointed to a bunch of flowers not far away and said, "Master, do you think the flowers look good?" Man Bao followed and looked over, and immediately said, "I know this flower. Can I make a wreath for you? It looks good on your head." So the two children stopped arguing, and ran over to pull flowers, grass, and squatted on the ground to weave garlands. Man Bao's craftsmanship was a little rusty, but the garland she made was much better than Bai Shanbao's, so she gave Bai Shanbao her garland and put it on his head. She also reluctantly accepted the garland that Bai Shanbao gave her. Although it was too ugly, Man Bao insisted on wearing it home to save him face. Bai Shanbao also went back to see his grandmother and mother with a garland on his head. When Lu and Zheng saw Bai Shanbao went out to school and came back like this, they were both amused and angry, but they were relieved to see him so happy and his little face flushed. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 60. Zhou Dalin brought back a lot of privet virgins with his two younger brothers, but they didn't know how to deal with it. Man Bao immediately went to Keek to check Li Zhenzi's entry, and found that Li Zhenzi's entry has not been written yet, and the reward points have not been issued. She couldn't help but wonder, "Kiko." The system said, "The researchers are still conducting related research. Although there are some records in the encyclopedia, they must verify whether the records are accurate before they can be listed." It said, unlike the previous Wisteria and Azalea, Ligustrum also involves pharmacological knowledge, so the evaluation will take some time. It reassures Man Bao that as long as the researcher over there confirms the entry, it will be uploaded as soon as possible, and the points for this part will be settled. Man Bao didn't expect it to be so troublesome. Could it be that there is one thing they haven't been able to research in the future, and she won't be able to get points? The system was afraid of hurting her enthusiasm, and said, "Such a situation will not happen." In order to protect the rights and interests of the host, the general system stipulates a time limit. Plants exceed 1 month and animals exceed 3 months. If you can't determine the entry and the rewards, the minimum reward points of 1,000 points will be paid first. The system said, if the host can find an entry that humans cannot make in the future beyond the time limit, that thing must be an endangered species from a long time ago. Maybe the host wants to buy your mother's medicine points. Man Bao's eyes brightened, "So great? Then tell me, some of your species will become extinct in the future, so I'll go find them specifically for you, won't you?" The system didn't expect her brain to move so fast, and its host in the past also quickly discovered this method, but she was an adult, and she was still a baby. The system regretted telling her too much, and quickly discouraged. Host, the main purpose of our encyclopedia is to pursue the comprehensiveness of species, not to only include endangered species, so the subsystem is prohibited from conducting searches in this area, only following the host. In the process of scanning the vicinity, and then doing a comprehensive recording. So even 2 years ago, Manbao slipped into the vegetable garden and pulled the cabbage seedlings for him, but when he entered it bravely, the encyclopedia didn't say anything, and still gave Manbao a little bonus point. Well, it is because the points are too few, so that it is embarrassed to deduct the wages that belong to it. Although Manbao regretted it, he also felt that the rules of the encyclopedia were good. However, since the entry for privet was not made, what about their privet? Manbao squatted on the ground and watched her brothers carefully take out the strings of privet virgins from the basket to dry on the mat, and asked, "Are you going to be drying?" Joe Dallin said, "Look at how long this fruit is so full, how long does it take to dry it? Besides, I have never seen any other fruit that needs to be dried, and the persimmon needs to be peeled. What kind of privet should be peeled? Persimmon when drying, you should pinch it, should you pinch it? The most important thing is that what are they doing when they come back with this thing, even if it is for his mother to eat, his mother can't finish it?" MRSGN supported Xiao Qian's hand and came out. Hearing that, she glanced at her silly son, then turned her head and said to Zhou Lang, "Erlang, tomorrow you and the fifth one will go into the city, take a bunch of privet virgins and ask them at the pharmacy. Ask them how to clean up this thing, ask them if they will accept the concocted privet, if they do, how much is a pound, and if they are fresh, how much is a pound." On Tuesday, Lang should go. The Qian family asked them to put everything in the firewood room to dry, and asked them to be careful when entering and leaving. Manbao proudly said to Keek, "Even if there is no entry, my mother also has a way." The system also said, "The host's mother is very smart, and she is the smartest person in this family besides the host." Manbao curiously squatted in his head and chatted with Keek, "How do you know I'm the smartest?" Scanning, in the future, human beings will divide human intelligence into several levels, the system said after a pause. The host's intelligence is not only the first in the entire Qilai village, but also within 100 miles. When I fell down, this is the first choice. A piece of the highest intelligence. Otherwise, although the place where it landed was a little off, it wouldn't stray into the valley. In the first 2 years, the system was not without regrets, but as Manbao grew bigger and more lovely, they got along well, and Manbao obviously did not regard it as a machine, but as a friend and an elder, so it no longer regretted it. The most important thing is that the host is young, and her intelligence will increase with age. As long as she works hard and learns more, she will walk out of this mountain in the future. Is she afraid that she will not gain anything? The system defines Manbao as a potential stock, which has been a lot of worry in the past 2 years. Because now she is officially enrolled in school and has worshipped her husband again, Keek's pressure is not so great, so it has become more and more talkative. Chatting with Manbao, "In your family, your mother's IQ is higher than that of your father and second brother, and your second brother and fourth brother have the same IQ, the highest among all brothers." Manbao disliked Chiro Lang very much. "The second brother is okay, why is the fourth brother also a smart person? He is so stupid that he even goes to gamble." "It's not only a question of IQ, but also a question of self-control," said the system. "I only scan their intelligence scores, and comprehensive evaluation requires some evaluation methods." Manbao was very curious, "Then which of my nephews do you think is smarter?" The system was silent for a while and said, "No, Aria's intelligence is similar to her father's." "Are big, 2, 3 and 4 not smart?" System, their intelligence value is not as good as your brother's. Of course, it is also possible that their intelligence can be developed because they are still young. Man Bao, it turns out that my nephews and nieces are all fools. Man Bao looked at her nephews and nieces with a look of caring fools, sighed sadly, and got into the kitchen and said to her three sister-in-law, 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 sister-in-law 3, next time you have children let the eldest brother, the second brother, and the third brother go and pick up walnuts for you to come back to eat, okay? The three of them were at a loss. Are we going to have a baby? The point is not this, is it good? The point is, children who eat walnuts can be smart. If there is another fool, their family will become a fool's nest. The system shut its mouth wisely and pretended to be dead. Man Bao did not let it go, and even asked it about the intelligence of the people in the school. The system said, the host's little friend is very smart, and his intelligence is not far from yours. In addition, your teacher's IQ is also very high, which is a little worse than yours. However, he has been studying for years to have such intelligence. Value, if the host and your friends can read carefully and think more, they will definitely be smarter in the future. Man Bao let out a wow. This time was a huge surprise, because in her opinion, Mr. Zhuang is very smart, so she is actually smarter than Mr. Zhuang. With this knowledge, Man Bao ran to school full of energy the next day, and looked at Bai Shanbao with a particularly relieved look.